Okay, we're going to go into Module 3, being an effective listener as a peer educator. We are moving right along. So this module will really focus on the way we serve as listeners in our roles as peer educators. And specifically in this model, we're going to focus on skills and techniques that will allow you to be a more effective listener. A lot of students may come to you and share various things with you. So these are really important skills to hone in on. But these skills are not meant to be a checklist. They're more a toolkit for you. So our outline is going to be an activity. We are going to go into a listening skills introduction, barriers to listening, nonverbal communication, roles of effective listening, motivational interviewing techniques, which is really important. And number 7, we will go into our module review. So kind of for this activity, I just want you to think again, you can write it down or you can think of these questions in your head. I want to know, why is it important to be a good listener? How do you define a good listener? What is the difference between how you would listen as a friend and how you would listen as a peer educator? What can make listening difficult? What qualities do you look for in a person when you want to talk about an important issue? When I ask these questions, you're more than welcome to pause as each question is asked and kind of ponder your answer, or you can pause at the end of all my questions. So another discussion point, and you can pause after I ask this and either write it down or think about it. Why do people seek a listener? So when we talk about being effective listeners, we often use the term sympathy and empathy. What do these words mean to you as a peer educator? What does these words mean to you as a friend? What do these words mean to you as somebody who may be in a relationship or have relationships with family members? So what do these words mean to you? I want you to think of the following when you consider being empathetic versus sympathetic. Sympathy essentially is feeling bad for someone. You can show sympathy by saying that you are sorry that someone is experiencing something. However, when you attempt to connect with someone and feel their pain, you are showing them empathy. Therefore, an empathetic response can often be more well received than a sympathetic one. An example of an empathetic response might be, "Wow, that sounds really tough. Thank you for telling me. How can I help you?" So when we talk about, when I think of empathy and sympathy, Brene Brown is an author, researcher, and speaker who talks about empathy extensively in her work. If you don't know anything about Brene Brown, I would really look her up. She's got some TED Talks. She's wonderful in kind of teaching you about empathy and sympathy. That's how I really learned the difference, by listening to her. So what makes people approachable? Consider these facts when you're thinking about approachability. What is their demeanor? Are they smiling or frowning? Do they seem engaged with others around them? Will they understand? Do we have anything in common? Are they knowledgeable? Will they understand my feelings? Will they have time? Are they in a hurry? Are they accessible and in a place where they have time to listen? Will they tell anyone? Do they understand confidentiality? Are they known for gossiping? Again, this doesn't go, confidentiality is broken when somebody obviously discloses a Title IX case to us. But anything else, will you keep their confidentiality and not gossip about the things that they say? Will they judge me? Are they unbiased? Can they listen without showing shock or disapproval? So I want to talk about some more discussion questions. Um, I really want you to think about some skills a person should have to be an effective listener. If we were in person, we would have done the telephone game, but I want you to consider that question. What are some skills a person should have to be an effective listener? So we've got some barriers to listening. If we had done the game of telephone, which I'm sure you've all played in one way or the other, many barriers can distract us from listening to other people. There are two broad categories of barriers, and they're internal and external. Internal barriers are barriers that exist in the listener's own thoughts and feelings, and the external barrier are environmental factors that contribute to making it difficult for us to listen. So when we have external barriers, these are some examples. Distractions. Are you in a loud or crowded space? Do you have your cell phone on? Are you looking at an email notification? These are all distractions that can serve as a barrier to effective listening. I have to be really conscious of this when I'm at work because a lot of times I'm getting texts from various people and other people are coming to talk to me. And sometimes I'll have to say, can you hold on 1 second? Let me just answer this text so that way I can give you my full attention because I don't want to be texting while they're telling me something. The listening environment itself could prevent barriers. This will depend on a lot of times, like where we're having our programming and events. Listening might be hard. Are there places to sit for you to talk to this student? Are those places comfortable? Does the environment feel private? If we are tabling outside the student union building and somebody comes up and shares something, it might not be that private. We might have to take them aside somewhere where it's a little more private. Is the surrounding area messy? So we have some internal barriers. So letting your mind wander. Have you ever been in a situation when someone's speaking to you, yet you might lose track of the conversation and you're not paying attention anymore? Try your best to engage in the conversation both mentally and physically. And we'll talk more about that later in the module. This is also good for you in your classes. Consider that if your mind is wandering when the instructor is talking, do something to ground yourself. What can you feel? Like right now I can feel the desk in front of me and my mouse. So I can ground myself to be in this presentation. Another thing is we might prejudge the speaker. Sometimes it may be natural to guess what the speaker may bring up in a conversation. This can be dangerous. Don't try to assume what a person will be telling you, as you will not be fully present in this conversation if you do that. Not being fully present in a situation is not fair to you nor to the person that you're trying to help. We might rush to solve the speaker's issues. Often we find ourselves exceptionally busy or desperate to fix an issue. I'm a fixer. I was a counselor. I did private practice with my clients, and a lot of times it was hard for me to not immediately want to give them a solution to fix their issue. But over time, I learned I just sit back and listen. Showing signs that we may need to leave. When we are in a hurry, we may exhibit behaviors such as glancing at a clock or fidgeting. These are subtle behaviors that communicate to the person that we don't have time for them. And then we can technically dismiss the speaker's feelings. This barrier is not one that individuals often exhibit intentionally. However, our unintentional invalidation of feelings can be a tremendous barrier for effective listening. If someone says, I'm such a horrible friend or I'm such a bad sister, don't say, oh, no, you're not. This is sometimes invalidating their feelings. Maybe you can ask some probing questions along the lines of what makes you feel that way. Well, that isn't my experience with you, but tell me more about why you're feeling like that, right? Instead of just shutting them down, because I always say our feelings are always valid. Sometimes our actions are not always valid, but our feelings are always valid. And then we can talk a little bit about not discussing confidentiality. Sometimes we do have to tell individuals, I am a mandated reporter. I may have to report this if it's a Title IX situation. So letting them know that piece. Enabling is a unique barrier, and it's an internal one related to kind of wanting to rush for the fix. When we enable others, we take away their discomfort by attempting to solve their smallest problems. So this often means we might ignore larger problems or underlying issues. Our main goal when we're enabling is to find solutions that minimizes others' discomfort. In turn, when someone does not feel discomfort, they're less likely to create change. Although we might do this with good intention, it does little to inspire or encourage change. I think inherently people don't like to see other people uncomfortable, so we want to do something to try to fix it, but it could actually hinder them. Here's a video on enabling.
Thanks for meeting with me, man. Of course, bro. You know you can call whenever. I really appreciate it. I don't know where my head's at right now. I feel like I really messed up with your roommate. What do you mean? Well, I got drunk last night, wasted, and I came into your room while you were still out and woke him up. And I ate all your pizza and then puked all over his jacket. And the messed up thing is I don't even remember any of it. I only know that I got a huge text from him this morning. I told myself I wasn't even going to go out last night. I know I've been drinking a lot lately. This semester just has me so stressed, and the alcohol just lets me forget it for a while. All I do is act like an idiot, piss people off. It's completely fine. We've all been there. We've all gotten a little too drunk and, did things that we regret. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna talk to Zach. I'll smooth things over. I'll tell him how bad you feel and, that you offered to dry clean his jacket. And I know you're kind of tight on cash right now, so don't even worry about it. I'll take care of it. I'll get it dry cleaned myself. Really? You would do that for me? Yeah, of course, bro. I'd rather smooth things over and not jeopardize all of our friendships or even make you have to have an awkward conversation. The next time we go out, I'll check in on you from time to time and make sure you're throwing up in a toilet now and in your own room. Wow. I really appreciate that. For real, you're a great friend. Yeah, I'm here for you, bro. Now go sleep it off. You still look hungover. Sounds good.
So, what about this interaction fits our definition of enabling? And what would you have done differently as a peer educator? So we want to create a listening environment. When we need to listen to someone effectively, we need to make sure our environment is conducive to success. The ideal listening environment is private, comfortable, and quiet, and has little to no potential for interruptions. This helps us remove some of the external barriers we discussed previously. So asking yourself, does it provide privacy? Is it comfortable? Is it quiet? Are there potential interruptions? We're going to look at the two main types of communication we want to be aware of, nonverbal and verbal. So nonverbal does not include spoken words. It's gestures, facial expressions, and body language. Verbal communication, on the other hand, is actual words that we use. One way that we can remember to practice appropriate nonverbal communication is through the acronym ROLES. So R is for relaxed, O is for open, L is for lean in, E is for eye contact, and S is for square up. So the last technique for effective listening that we developed is to practice mindfulness as a listener. When you think of this technique, we need to consider the following. Be aware of your attitudes, prejudices, beliefs, and your emotions. So we're all human and we all have our own emotions. Sometimes our attitudes, beliefs, or prejudices, or even emotions will lead us to reflect in a certain way. Although sometimes we cannot or should not quell these beliefs, we must recognize that they exist and be mindful of the effects that they have on our ability to listen. Focus on listening to the speaker. Even if we disagree with the person in front of us, we must try to focus on listening to them. Don't make a value assessment about the person. Rather, just listen to them. We also want to make sure we don't let our mind wander. We want to suspend our personal judgments. Sometimes someone will disclose something to us that may make us question that person's morals or ethical foundation. If that person is coming to us for help, then they clearly are uncomfortable and they want to talk about creating change in their life. We should try to attempt to suspend our personal judgments of the person so we can truly help them. Meet the person where they are. This is one of my favorites. This is metaphorically, of course, but different people with whom we work with will be at different stages of their own personal development. Remember, change is a process, not an event. Don't speak with someone as if they're in the action stage when their words clearly indicate that they're in the pre-contemplation stage. Likewise, don't speak to someone when they're in the contemplation stage when they're in the maintenance stage. Look and see where is the individual and how can I meet them where they're at. Accept the person's right to their own choices. They have their own choices. So we may refer somebody over to Title IX, and they may choose not to go through the process and do anything about their situation. It's their choice on what they want to do. We don't want to go in and say, well, we're going to refer you to Title IX, and you need to open a case, and you need to file a complaint against this person. They may just need to go to Title IX for support, and they may not want to do anything after that, and that's okay. And if you aren't able to be judgmental to an individual, you refer them out. This is in counseling as well. In my private practice, if there's somebody that I'm seeing and there's some issues, I might not be the best person to help them, so I would have to refer them out if I'm not the right person to help them. So we're going to look at still here phrases. We want to highlight two techniques that listeners can use to be more effective in encouraging someone to share. The first of these are still here phrases. When we use these phrases, we make brief comments or nonverbal signs to show the listener that we are engaged in a conversation. This could be a head nod, a simple okay, or a verbal mm-hmm. Those are still here phrases. Here are some bridges and links. As listeners, we use bridges and links to encourage a speaker to build upon a previous point. So essentially linking or building a bridge from one part of the conversation to another. This encourages the speaker to share more information. So some examples of this are go on, really, tell me more about that. These bridges do not directly ask follow-up questions to the speaker, as that's another technique. And this is one of my favorites, motivational interviewing. It's an evidence-based approach to help you support your peers as they make a change in their behavior. It is non-judgmental, non-confrontational, and it's a way to help people examine their behavior and make healthier decisions. In motivational interviewing, the person is allowed to speak freely about recent events or a particular behavior. The interviewer listens carefully without judgment and asks follow-up questions. Through this guided discussion, we can gauge whether the person sounds ready to start making a change. If this is the case, we can provide them resources and assistance in making that change. The interaction guides the person to self-discovery and a mature decision about making a behavior change. So the acronym for motivational interviewing is OARS, and these are key techniques that are used in motivational interviewing. So the O stands for open-ended questions, the A stands for affirmations, the R stands for reflective listening, and the S stands for summaries. And we'll go through each of these. So for open-ended, one important way to engage with the speaker is to use effective questioning. It's often ideal to ask open-ended questions when speaking with someone, and open-ended questions cannot be answered with a simple yes or no, nor do they have a definitive answer. So, an example of a close-ended question would be, "What is your major?" You could ask, however, what about someone's feelings. For example, what do you think about your major? Sometimes, however, you need to ask a closed-ended question to gauge the context of the conversation. So the closed-ended question can help set the stage. For example, you wouldn't ask, what made you decide to be a fashion merchandising major without first asking what someone's major is, if that makes sense. They build upon one another. Affirmations are statements and gestures that recognize a person's strength and successes. Affirmations help build rapport between the interviewer and the interviewee and boost the person's confidence and their ability to create change. So, an example of this could be you really handled yourself well in that situation. And also, affirmations are just good for all of us to use in general. I sometimes have to give myself a daily affirmation so I can know that I'm doing well and talk to myself in a kind way. Sometimes, if people were to listen to the conversations I have in my head, they would think I treat myself unkind at times, as I'm sure we all do. I would never talk to my friends sometimes the way that I talk to myself. So affirmations are a really good way to build ourselves up. But also when people hear it from somebody else, it really, really builds them up. Reflective listening clarifies and conveys your understanding as a listener. We often use this technique at various points throughout a conversation to make sure we are comprehending correctly. Usually, we'll paraphrase someone's statements instead of repeating them back to them. The key point is to remember that reflective listening is a technique for contributing a conversation about a particular subject. So it may be paired with an open-ended question. For example, it sounds like you might be thinking about making a change to your behavior. What might be difficult about that? And then summarizing is somewhat similar to reflective listening. However, summarizing involves recapping an entire conversation to see if anything was missed. Summaries are often best used at the end of conversation or when the conversation is about to change topics. So we already done with module 3. We looked at the very first being, and before I talk about the difference in empathy and sympathy, I would love if y'all were to do some of your own research and look through Brene Brown's work. Again, she changed my entire view on the definition between empathy and sympathy. So sympathy is feeling for someone, a sense of feeling sorry for them, but empathy is attempting to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Essentially, you're feeling with them. We have internal and external barriers to effective listening. Those external barriers are factors in the environment that make it difficult to listen. The internal barriers are factors that exist in the listener's own thoughts and feelings. We can look at creating a good listening environment by asking ourselves these questions. Does it provide privacy? Is it comfortable? Is it quiet? Are there potential interruptions? We use roles in nonverbal communication. We have conversations where we're relaxed, our arms aren't crossed, we're not tensed up, we're open. We may even share some things about ourselves with them to make them feel comfortable in opening up. We lean in a little bit, not too close, giving them enough space to feel comfortable, but we lean into the conversation. We make eye contact with the individual, and we square up. They're not talking to our backs or to our sides. We're face to face with them. When we look at some still here phrases, that might look like okay, uh-huh, or a head nod. And motivational interviewing is an evidence-based approach to help you support your peers as they make changes in their behavior. And that wraps up Module 3.